Welcome into Kane's Power Play, and in today, I'm going to be looking at Game 1 review, kind of telling you guys about it. If you didn't get the chance to watch it, I'll kind of try to cover as much as I can here in this little video, and ultimately, good game for Carolina, 2-0. You didn't play your best hockey, but you get a win, and at the end of the day, that's the big stuff. That's what matters. Freddie Anderson with the 22-save shutout. A couple of stats for you guys. 29 shots for Carolina, 22 for Ottawa. 57 hits for Carolina, 39 for Ottawa. 15 penalty minutes for Carolina, 21 for Ottawa. Obviously, that Jordan Stahl, Brady Tkachuk fight coming off of puck drop, which I'll kind of try to go through the game chronologically here in a second. Face-off percentage, 43% to Carolina, 56% to Ottawa, which we kind of knew that was going to be an issue for Carolina coming in face-offs and whatnot. So you start the game, and it's obviously you get that fight off of puck drop. You see Tkachuk, you see Stahl. They're kind of going at it. They're talking, and they both agree to drop the gloves before the opening face-off. They drop the puck and they drop the gloves, and it was a great way to start. Tkachuk had Stahl in the first little bit of the fight. Stahl's able to kind of work his way back, a couple of punches. About 3 or 4 punches to Tkachuk and is able to take him down, ultimately winning the fight. A couple of things to look at, though, is as far as that goes. Like, Jordan Stahl doesn't fight. He's had 2 fighting majors in the last 10 years, both being this season. One, Jalen Chatfield got hit up high in Minnesota. Jordan Stahl came in, dropped the gloves with Pitlick, and then this moment right here where Jordo drops the gloves with Tkachuk. He's willing to do whatever he can to win that cup, but also just bring his team into it. I thought he did a really good job there. And, going through the game, first 10 minutes, 9 minutes, or, Canes didn't have a shot on net. They were kind of struggling to be able to create some spots, which makes sense. Look at the space. It was very tight. It was a tight checking game. Ottawa was struggling to get shots up on as well. And, when you kind of look at it as far as the game goes, look, that first period was kind of a filling out process. Carolina started to catch fire towards the end of it, which is exactly what you want. And going into that second period, you felt like, okay, we've got an opportunity, and bam, Logan Stankoven is able to put one in the back of the net from the second line that's been buzzing really all season long, but definitely in the last couple of weeks. It was a great touch pass from Jackson Blake right to Stankoven, and at that point, Stanky, right? He's got the ability to release in a phone booth. He can really do it from anywhere, and he does. And he catches Linus Ullmark 5-hole in a really good shot location. I'd like to ask Logan if that's where he was kind of intending to shoot, because when you look at Logan Stankoven, he caught that pass in the slot from Jackson Blake, and you look at Ullmark, and you look at where the goal slipped through and everything like that. It's clear that Ullmark was preparing for Stankoven. I don't know if I'd say to go to the backhand, but definitely go to the left side, because he was powering up on that left skate, trying to go cross crease. Stankoven puts it right on the money on Ullmark's left skate, and at that point, goes off the skate into the back of the net, and a really good way to start for Stankoven and continue the game that he's been playing. He's been so well, and he's a great playoff performer for Carolina. But you find the zone in that second, right? And that was great, and the hits are flying. Martinook had, 6 hits in the first. I forgot to mention that. Shashnikov was throwing them. Jordo, Ehlers he had moments where he was throwing some pretty big hits. Miller, Stankoven. I could really go on and on and on about, the physicality that the boys brung. But going over that goal, Stankoven with the goal, of course, Jackson Blake, Taylor Hall with the assist. And overall, that was the type of goal that you like to see from that second line, being able to create space, create something out of nothing. I mean, that's what that was, and I tweeted it out that those guys just they not only do they play so connected, and the chemistry's there, but their ability to keep the puck in the offensive zone, it's what you like to see. And as the second period went on, it continued to be tight checking, but it continued to be where Carolina was finding their groove. As the game went on, they played better. Couple of penalties for Jackson Blake, and I believe it was Miller with the second dog puck. I might not be correct on that, but yeah, I mean, Blake with the delay of game penalty, and overall penalty kill had to be strong for Carolina. It was, the power play wasn't, which we'll get into that. Is Carolina had an opportunity or a couple, definitely on 5-on-3. They had 2 chances. They were 0 for 5 on the power play, and that sucks. But you win and you're 0 for 5 on the power play. That's something to look as a success. Sebastian Aho, 2 for 11. A big reason why faceoffs didn't go, big reason why power plays didn't go our way is because faceoffs didn't go our way either. Stankoven was 4 for 10. You would take that from Stankoven. He's again, first real season playing center. You know that there's going to take some time and adjustments, especially going against a top 3 faceoff team in Ottawa. 5 on 3, had chances, just wasn't able to find anything. And Ehlers had an open net kind of and sent it wide. And overall, you want to see improvements from the power play. It's stuff that's dried up in the past in the playoffs that has hurt Carolina. And you get some really good goaltending, so you don't really have to bang on the power play. But down the road, when Freddie allows 3 or 4 goals in the back of the net, you're gonna need that power play to wake up. So we go into the third period. Carolina has that 1-0 lead, and it's that second line again. I mean, you can talk about them all day long. Taylor Hall is going to end up putting this one in the back of the net. At first, it looked like it was Stankoven's goal, but it goes to Taylor Hall, and at that point, you realize that second line, that's the engine right now, and that line is feasting off of Shane Pinto and Nick Cousins and Amadio. It's playing really well against that group, and you'd like to see that continue. Stankoven was all around the net. Hall was there. Blake was there. I mean, it really was a bunch of guys in front of the net just swinging at it. Stankoven was able to wrap around Hall kind of between the legs and make something happen there. Then I guess, went off of Hall. He didn't even know he scored until after the game when they were doing the 3 stars. But overall, that second line second line and Freddie Anderson was the reason you win this game, as well as that third D pair of Nikishin and Goss's pair. Those guys played great as well. So a couple stats to me that stood out. I posted this on Twitter. I think the first one, like I said, 2 for 11 for Aho in the dot. You'd like to see him play better. I don't want to pay a ton of attention to it right now, but because it is only one game. But I do think that you would like to see him play better. Ehlers out there throwing the body, 4 hits for him. It's great to see. Fourth line didn't play that much. Carrier only about 6 minutes, or I should say only about 7 minutes. 6:51 of ice time, and you're still able to go out there and lay almost 60 hits in a game. That's it's insane when your best hitter played 6 minutes with 3 hits, and you're still able to play the way you want to physically. It tells you how deep this team is and how deep how much this team wants it. Martinook with 7 hits, Svechnikov with 8, Stankoven a goal and assist, 6 hits as well for him. So really good numbers. And then you can look on the back end, Sean Walker with 5 hits as well, Country Miller with 3. So those guys made their noise. Freddie Anderson does a really good job at shutting it out. Made that save against Drake Batherson where, look, they thought it was in the back of the net. They called it a goal. It wasn't. Freddie talked about it after the game. He said, yeah, I knew it wasn't a goal. I knew my glove was not over the red line, and it wasn't. So a really good confidence save in him. And then he made another save right after that, kind of lucky, where he fell down, but everything worked out in his favor. He gets a shutout, and you've got to really feel for him. A guy that's been through every injury possible and back, and, tough regular season. You can clown him on that all you want, but when it matters the most, he's shown up so far. And I get this is game 1, and we could be just over exaggerating completely, but the way these guys are going right now, you don't see a team throwing 60 hits like this. You don't see a team coming out here being able to adjust to that playoff style. Carolina did really well. Ottawa did not. Ottawa has to adjust, and we're going to see if they do in that second game. Overall, I don't have many complaints. Obviously, we did not play the best hockey we could have. And that's what should get you guys excited, is that we didn't even play the best. And, we still shut out a team that people think could beat us, and people think there's upsets. So, overall, exciting game. I'm excited for game 2. It's going to be another one of those tight checking, not much space going on, defensive battles. A couple of key notes for Ottawa going into that game. Artem's up. Will we see him playing? Is he questionable? What's his status look like? Same thing with Clevin as well. So a couple of questions for them on the back end. And, we'll see if Ottawa's going to have any answers for the way Carolina played. Gabe, you have any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question revolving the goalies. Do you think that we will see Bussy in this series, if any? I know there's been fans all over Twitter, all over your socials, blowing up about Bussy this, Bussy that. Like, Anderson's not going to start the whole series, but do you think, unless Anderson does kind of, crap the bed or whatever, do you think there's a chance we see Bussy in this series at any point?
Yeah, I mean, I said it. I think if you go down 3-0, 3-1, why not? Why not give Freddie a rest? I mean, look, Freddie's not 27, right? He's on the older side, and you want to give him some time. You want to give him a game off if you can. I get we have a 3-day break, in between some of these games, but you'd still like to see Bussy and give him some playoff action. Make sure he's going to be reliable coming in. And obviously, I'm not sure about Kochetkov, but I definitely would advocate for it. Am I 100% certain it's going to happen? No. I'm probably about 90% though. I think it's just a smart choice.
And do you see Anderson playing like this for the rest of the series? Because he looked phenomenal in Game 1 with those saves.
Well, he talked about it the best, during his post-game press conference is, when my team in front of me is, breaks down, I've got to be there and be able to make a save, because he understands his team in front of him is not going to play perfect all game, right? They're gonna try to go block a shot and miss, and bam, there's a wide open shooting lane, or they're gonna misread a pass. He knows the team in front of him isn't perfect, and he understands that he's got to come up clutch in those moments. So do I think he's gonna blank the Senators every single game? No. But do I think he's going to be, a guy we blame if we lose a game? I don't think so. I truly do believe that he's got the opportunity to go back to those days in Toronto. I think he had a 937. We looked at it, 936, something like that. His first year in Carolina playoffs, and he had a 927. I think we could see something similar for Freddie, and I think that'd be phenomenal. And
one last question here. We know the chemistry this team has, especially after that fight. The post-game interview with Martinook praising Jordan Staal, the captain. Do you think the chemistry of this team can push it far in the playoffs?
Well, yeah, there's no doubt that there's been a culture ever since Brendan Moore took over as head coach in Carolina. So I don't know if we'd go to the Cup based off of chemistry, just because we've had chemistry for the last couple of seasons. Have we had it this high? Probably not, right? I go back to that second line every time of Stankoven and Blake and Hall, just because those guys aren't going to be your normal playoff guys, right? Look, they're undersized. There's no doubt about that, but they play in a way, they play, playoff hockey. It's not just two guys, one guy playing that hockey. Those all three of them combined, and that's what makes that line so dangerous. Everybody's got to understand that, right? I think, the Aho-Jarvis chemistry was a little off yesterday. I'd like to see that get a little bit better. We're obviously going to have that chemistry of Jordan Martinook, Jordan Staal, Ehlers. Those guys are, they play well together. So, I think if there's any year that Carolina can go to the Cup based off of the way, they play and how well they're meshed, I do think it's this year. So, with that being said, Gabe, thank you for joining me again. And, Game 1 in the books. Carolina 2-0 win. Game 2 Monday, 7:30 p.m. Home in Raleigh yet again. Game 3, 4 will be on the road in Ottawa. Make sure you guys watch the game. Check out the socials, Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube, Spotify, canespowerplay.com. Go check it all out. Thank you guys for listening.